as I was submitting the proposal for this meeting, this name kept ringing in my head. I couldn't take it off. And obviously I thought, it's many years since you've read that. How can you relate to that? You know, what did Francis Schaeffer want to say? So some weeks ago, I went back and I started to look at his video about how should we then live. And he basically walks us in an absolutely unique way and very digestible and very down to earth. He walks us through the Western civilization, through the development of thoughts and of culture, only to end up and say, well, if this is what was ahead of us, how should we then live? Where is our place? How do we relate to this? And I think it is very appropriate to ask the same question when we think about technology. Because technology is all around us, it's really taking a grip of us. And I don't think there is anyone in this room that at one point or another, in one form or another, you didn't ask a question that would fall under, how should I then live? How should I then use this? How should I relate to my children or to my work or to my entertainment or whatever? So what I'm basically trying to do, and I stated here my title just so that you know that I come from an academic perspective. I work at the university, and I found that sometimes it's useful to take that annoying part of being an academic, of having to go through the theory of this and the theory of that, and through all that tedious academic work, but it helps you to sort of put things in place. If you don't find the right theory, you are very welcome to develop your own, something that I haven't done and I don't think I will. But I like to think that I start to learn how to take someone's theory and use it to explain certain things about what is around me. And basically this is what I'm trying to do today. Now, I think you've had enough lectures by now. If you were a good ELF attendant, you've attended all the plenary sessions, all the networks, and some workshops in the afternoon, and then the evening sessions. And by now you're fed up. Well, not fed up, but tired. Let's put it that way. Not fed up. We're still hungry, and we can still take more. But you're tired of lectures. So today I want to provoke you to build up whatever we're doing today, but to build it together. Okay? So there will be a little bit more engagement. I hope you read the notes that said, bring on your mobile technology. And I hope you have your phones with you and stuff. If not, you can think about them. But it will be a little bit more engaging. Talking a little bit more about myself, I want to show you my family. Now, I have 3 children, a daughter and 2 boys, and that's my handsome husband, looking like a Russian Tsar or a railroad officer, as somebody said. You look more like the Romanian railroad officer than a Tsar. But I had always a very hard time getting my kids to sit for a family picture. And actually, the few times when I tried to do that, especially around Christmas, I ended up in tears because the whole house were teasing me about it, and they were making faces, and I couldn't get a really good picture. And this is one of the rare good pictures that we were able to get in Prater. They had fun, they thought it's fun. So for a long while, we used this as our picture. Now, some years, actually last summer, as I was giving a presentation on technology, I said I kept using this picture, and it's not that appropriate for technology. It's appropriate to show that my family is very artistic. My husband is an artist. My younger son is a musician. My daughter is very artistic. My daughter-in-law now. Also, we had to do an updated picture, okay, because my daughter and my older son, they got married. And I thought that's going to be very hard to get them together and get now another family picture. And I came up with an idea, and you would not believe, but my son and my son-in-law worked for about 5 hours to get this picture. And now we think this is so much better. You know, my younger son wasn't even at home when we did this. We found his picture somewhere, and obviously my dog didn't have to sit still for the picture. And as you can tell, we're all Mac persons. Everyone is portrayed on his own technology. And I decided to start with this as a point. It doesn't mean that our family is completely disruptive and disconnected and sick. But I think to a certain degree, it portrays a lot of what our relationships are these days. I obviously talk more with my daughter on Facebook or on other technology than we do face to face. Okay? So in a way, I want to challenge you to think about yourselves and your families and your environment from the perspective of technology. And you don't have to feel bad if you're too into technology or if you're not at all into technology, but we can all see where exactly we are. We'll look a little bit later at Marshall McLuhan, who said media is the message these days. Very often the media that we're using is also telling something about ourselves in one context or another. But yesterday, Margot already touched very, very clearly on who are the digital natives and who are the digital immigrants. Okay, this is one of the very good theories, or I'm not sure if it's a theory, but it's a statement that someone made. I can't remember his name, but I have it somewhere in my references. Who said that living in the digital world and in the information society is like being a citizen in a country. Now, probably the Americans, I don't know how much they would relate to this, or even the Westerners, but we from the Eastern Europe, from Romania, we had a lot of immigrants that went to the States. And it is a researcher's heaven to just look at them 10, 20, 30 years after immigrating to the States. It's also very sad, I have to confess. The people who immigrated in the 70s and 80s are stuck into Romania's of the 70s and 80s. They sing the same songs, they speak the same language, and sometimes it's really funny. They think about the same problems. They still think in terms of communists and non-communists, of Securitate and the good guys, the Christians or the whoever were the dissidents or whatever. And they somehow seem to be frozen in time. Their children are completely lost. I went to the Romanian church in Chicago. All the people my generation who emigrated in the 80s were there with their scarves on and with pretty much adapted clothing and songs and whatever from our church. And outside, on the hallway, were their children all speaking English. Some of them couldn't even speak Romanian. And being completely bored and disconnected from what was happening inside. We spent about a year in the States. After about 4 months, my children, who at that time, the older children were 4 and 6, after 4 months, they couldn't speak Romanian anymore. They completely switched to English. Now, the immigrants, sometimes for life, they remained marked by the experiences they had, even if they learn the language and integrate in the country. While the digital natives, they identify themselves with that society. Now, try to think that it's one of the best metaphors that you can think about the digital world. It's exactly the same. People who are born and grew up with digital technology look at it as being so normal, so natural, that somebody told me about their 3-year-old son that went to the TV and did this. Because for that child, opening a device is doing this. First device she ever held was an iPad. So she was doing this. I saw a very nice video. I didn't bring it here, but that's a very nice thing to use when you talk about it, because I'm going to also mention some of the tools that you can use in your ministry when you deal with technology. There's a very nice video on YouTube where they put in front of 8, 10-year-olds a cassette recorder, and they don't know what to do with it. What is it? They shake it. They don't know to push the button. They don't know to bring out the tape. If they show them a cassette, they don't know what that is. They keep trying to do this. Okay? What is the first thing we do? You know, if you drop your phone and it's ringing and it's disrupting and you just walked out, I take your phone, and what is the first thing that I try when I get somebody's phone and it's not an iPhone? I look for the buttons. Where's the button to stop it? I look for the buttons. But the younger ones, they wouldn't have a problem. They probably would know exactly how to touch it to do what it needs to do. And that's a very significant change. And if the hardware would be the only thing changing, it would be very easy, but it's not. There are many more things in terms of the content of it that are completely different. And we, the adults who are all immigrants, imagine that we are all a nation of immigrants, are not aware of a lot of these things. And there's going to be a price. And we don't know what that price is, but we can start thinking about it. Now, because I mentioned that there are theories that can help us think about technology and relate to technology, and as I was looking for such a theory, I discovered Marshall McLuhan. Now, everybody talks about Marshall McLuhan, but my surprise when I started to really look a little bit more seriously at him was to see that he was very controversial at his time. Marshall McLuhan was a Canadian professor of media, and his most important works that we relate to and we talk about, Understanding Media, The Extension of Man, Gutenberg Galaxy, and other such books, he wrote in the 60s. 60s. Now try to think what was the technology at that time in the 60s. And try to read that quote, because basically in his theories, the one that I love the most is the one that says that technology is an extension of the human body. I discovered more recently that he wasn't the only one to say that, and even before him, at the beginning of the century and around the Second World War, were other philosophers who looked at technology as an extension of the body. But he's the one who took it further, and he even had some insights in the future that are absolutely mind-blowing. Now, he also was very hermetic in his writing. I wouldn't say he was a terrible academic, but he was a lot misunderstood because also of the way he's writing. I have to confess, I was not able to read any book from end to end. He's very hermetic, and there are many books explaining his books, and those are easier to read. There are even courses on Marshall McLuhan, and it's worth digging into his theories, but you should know it's not something easy. So I keep at the surface and just take the easiest part. His first theory says that every technology is an extension of the human body, and he goes on in this quote to say, or of the mind, or we'll get to the point where it will be an extension of the consciousness. Now, when I started to talk about this, I just look at the extension of the human body. And what does that basically mean? That as a body, we're made to walk, okay? So people are able to walk. What happened when we invented as a technology the wheel? What part of us was extended? Our feet, okay? And what did we accomplish with that? Speed, we can get to places faster than before. Comfort, our feet don't hurt. And actually, this is a picture that I took on the Camino. Is there the Spanish guy on the Camino? And by the time I got there, my feet were hurting. So at that time, you appreciate any kind of extension of the body. So you know about muscles in your feet that you didn't know existed there. So that's why I put that picture. Okay, we can also go much further than before. Okay, and from the wheel, we invented the train, and then we invented the airplane, and now we can go around the world. And all these technologies are an extension of where we can physically advance. Okay, I have more pictures about that, but I'm not going to go into details. Obviously, the phone is an extension of our ears and of our sense, because usually goes with senses, of our hearing, right? The binoculars, or what else in terms of the speakers, microphones, also an extension of the ear. You can hear things better from a larger distance, okay? In terms of seeing, telescopes, we can see further and further and further. Now, I almost said the TV. Now, that's another type of extension. Because, yes, we see certain things, but it's also an extension of somebody's mind. We can see into somebody else's mind, into their ideas, into how they look at things. Okay? So, basically, if we were to really make things simple, extension of the mind, no, of the body, excuse me, the extension of the body are pretty much the invention in the industrial area. All the machines, all the mechanical things came to extend body parts. Hands, feet, eyes, or senses, body parts or senses that we have. Then we had the next step, that was the extension of the mind. And that started with electricity, with radio, with television, then satellite communication, and then into the digital world and computers. Basically, computers are an extension of the mind. We can go further, we can think, we can do things that normally we do with our mind, we can do with computers at a rate that we've never thought it's possible before. The scary part is the third one, the extension of the consciousness. And at first when I saw it, I was like, that's more science fiction. But how many of you did see these movies? Which one, Her or Transcendence? Transcendence, what's it about? Basically, Transcendence is about a guy who is dying for, it doesn't matter why, but he was so smart that it's a waste to waste him. So in the month that he had before dying, with the technology they had, they uploaded his consciousness. So the computer learned about him, about his speech, about his thinking, about his positions on different things. And so basically he spent the last month of his life making sure that everything that's in his head was transferred to this computer. Then he died, and the computer awoke and started to talk like him, because it was a computer, and he hijacked the banks and became instantly, no matter how rich he wanted, he was able to do whatever. So he developed even further. All research, everything was at his fingertips. And the rest I left for you to see. It's a movie worth watching. It's very interesting. It's made by Chris Nolan, who is the same guy who did Inception. So it's the kind of script that is really well thought of. and very interesting to look into details on it. Her is another movie where this guy, actually in the society, there is an operating system that has a voice, and it's not any operating system, it's not a PC and it's not a Mac. It's a her, it has a female voice because he chose a female voice. And it is an operating system that has artificial intelligence that can develop itself. And that computer started a relationship with this guy. And she has the voice of Scarlett Johnson, and very seducing voice and very interesting. And again, a movie worth watching. However, it has some explicit sexual content, although very interesting, completely only audio. And it's very interesting to look how they use it. So there are no visuals, that would be disturbing, but there's some audio, and it's interesting because it taps also into things that have to do with the body and the connection of the body with the technology and embodiment and all that, those things. Now you think this is fiction? Let me show you this. If you'll have time and you'll go online, look for Eterni Me. This is, do you know about it? Did you hear about that program? Now, do you know that the guy, the Romanian guy who is behind it, was my student in my master's program? Yeah. So this is really freaking out to think that a student in my master's program, he's a very smart guy. He was trained to be a medical doctor, and he has a digital content producing company, and he went to MIT this December for an entrepreneurial workshop, and there he was part of a team, and actually he was leading the team, and the team came up with this very bright idea called Eterni Me. They want to make it into a business. They're raising money now for it, and they expect probably in 1 year to start the beta version. We're basically using artificial intelligence algorithm. They are going to collect from the person that subscribes to it. You know, let's say I subscribe because I'm interested in what's happening there, but I wouldn't do that, God forbid. They would collect from your digital print online, you know, the digital trace that you leave, from your mails, from your posts, from your blogs, from your pictures, from everything. They would collect and build your avatar. Okay? And just as we have now a box with pictures, my mother died recently, some month ago, and we still haven't touched the drawer with all the family pictures. And we'll have to sort them out somehow and split them with my brother, but it's very painful to look at those memories. So in a similar way, instead of having that drawer with pictures, that you recall your loved one and everyone would trigger a memory, they would build this avatar that you can ask, you can interact with, and he will tell you what their position would be on that. It's really very interesting. I looked at his interviews. He was on CNN, he was on all kind of, the New Yorker more recently, and he keeps saying that the media misquoted. They don't understand what the program is, and we are not trying to build an avatar to live after, and we're not trying to make you immortal. This is a title from New Yorker where they say, simply become immortal. However, it taps into the need of the person. So with or without technologies, we have the same needs. We want to be remembered, we want to be present, we want to have a certain type of identity and self, and we build that in one way or another. So what Marshall McLuhan said in the 60s, and everybody laughed at him to the level where, I read, if you were a PhD student and quoted Marshall McLuhan, you would not get your PhD degree. It's like if you were quoting Wikipedia these days. Really, they related to him like that. And now they give courses on Marshall McLuhan because he really had a hindsight, not hindsight, a foresight, a way of seeing what might happen in the future. So he was so criticized by the idea of the extension that he developed it further, and he said, yes, it's right, every extension, every technology brings an extension, but then it also induces an amputation. Okay, what the amputation of the car technology would be? What happens if you use too much the car? You get fat. So first thing that happened when the Industrial Revolution came was that we stopped using certain body functions, walking being one of them. And that's one of the problems that we have these days with obesity and all kind of diseases. And we get into that absolutely unnatural situation where we go on a treadmill and we walk in place just because we've lost the ability to walk outside. And if we overextend it, you get to what you see here in this picture. You can presume that in every car there is a person, at the most two, and they don't talk to each other, they don't interact with each other. So also this kind of technology brought isolation. I used to ride a bus, and then it was more complicated, and from where we lived I had to walk to the bus for 15 minutes. So I said, I don't have the time for that, and I got a car. And the moment I got my own car, I've completely lost connection with a certain category of population that rides on the bus. And I'm completely disconnected. It's very convenient, and I can do more things, and I can go faster, but it's obviously I've lost something. It amputated something that was there before. Okay? Also, he asked the question, what does the medium make obsolete? What else, when a technology comes, is obsolete, is not used anymore? Let's think about when email started to be used. What is a technology that stopped to be used? Yeah, we're still handwriting. But if you had to send a document somewhere, what would you use? The fax machine. Now we just send a PDF. Do you still have a fax machine at home somewhere? Yeah. Can we use it? No. No, we cannot use it. Let me tell you this. When we built the house, we built a new house in 2007, and we wired it, and I put in the most important places in the house, I wanted to have a phone line, because we used to get our internet through the phone. So I have plugs for the phone in at least 4 or 5 places in the house, including the kitchen, because I said, I want to have a computer in the kitchen. At that time, nobody thought about it. And I was so determined about it that I made a hole into the wall to put my computer there. And behind it, in the technical room behind it, I have about 7 plugs, including for the phone. It's where I keep my brooms. It's a broom closet now. And people come and say, why did you leave this here? And I said, that was supposed to be for the computer. By the time we finished the house, everybody, a laptop became enough accessible so that I have a laptop now and I can put it everywhere, and obviously I have wireless, and there's nothing I can do with that technology. So this is just a sign on how fast it developed. I accessed a European project in 2008. I wrote the program, the application for a European project. And since I had to do with training managers, I said having laptops for everyone would be helpful, because we're going to teach them how to use the laptops for their managerial work and whatever. So I applied and I got 40 laptops. The project got accepted, approved, and signed only in 2010, and by the time we bought the laptops, it was 2011. Between 2008 and 2011, there was the invention of the notebook that lowered the prices to such a level that by the time I had them available, every single manager had his own laptop, and they said, no, I don't want another one. And it was almost unheard of, and I still have at my university, in a locked cupboard, 20 laptops, because nobody really wanted them. That's how fast things are changing. So whenever we look at technology, try to answer, what is your favorite technology media? Why do you want it? And now we'll make this second exercise. Just turn to each other, and if it's more convenient, make groups of three, and talk a little bit about what's your favorite technology or media, and what's your favorite app on your smartphone. What does it extend for you? What do you feel it brings to your life? Okay? And also, what is the amputation you experience? I'll just give you an example. If you use your calculator all the time, obviously you don't know the multiplication table as good as you used to. Okay? That's just a very simple application. But talk a little bit now about your technology. And if you have your phone with you, pull it out and think about it. What is the thing that you like most on your phone? Why did you get it? And what does it do to you here? But I want to share another application, especially for the ones who are in the academia. It's one of the last things that I've discovered. It's called Mendeley. Probably you use reference systems in the West, but in our context, we didn't know them very much. And this is an absolutely fabulous tool where it synchronizes the browser with a desktop application that I can have on any kind of technology. I have on my phone, I have on here, I have on my computer at work, on the laptop. And if I find an interesting article, I say save to Mendeley. If it's an academic journal, it will pull out the correct data, the journal, the number, the page, the author, tag names, link, everything. And if I go to my desktop device, I can read it there, I can make notes. And the nicest thing is that at the end of the work, if you know, like I work on this presentation and I need to have the references, I just drag and drop all the names on the page, and I have them in APA style, I have it in MLA style, in any kind of style I want. And it's absolutely fabulous. So for the people who are doing their master's, graduate work, PhDs, there are more of them, but reference systems are one of the last things that I've discovered. And I don't feel it amputated anything, because the tedious work of writing and keeping track of your sources, you didn't lose anything with that. But I hope this helped a little bit for you to look at what you have inside. And as a joke, I have an app, the Nike app on the phone. Do you know that? Yeah, it's a fitness thing. You turn it on when you do your walk, and it traces you through GPS. And at the end of your walk, it shows not only the map of where you walked, it shows you the pace, everything, and it has voices who come and say, "Well done, you haven't, you did your best time in, I don't know." And you can also put your friend in there and brag about where you walked and what you did. So I was bragging to my son that I walked more than you did. And one day when I came home from walking, he said, "Could you drive me to the bus stop because I'm a little bit running late?" And I forget to turn it off. So I get on the car and we go with the car, and about a kilometer from the house, a cheering voice says, "Well done, it's your best time so far. You already did 5 kilometers." So my son says, "Now I know how you reach your..." But that really is an app that helps me a lot, and also it helped me to bat my son into buying some equipment. I said, if you have 100 kilometers run this month, I get you this equipment. If not, by the end of the month, you have to give me back money. So that was really nice to track. What I'm trying to do with this is to show and help you see that a lot of the things that technology brings to us can enrich our lives, and they do enrich our lives. And that technology in itself, it's not bad. However, the content is not neutral. The content that we put into that technology can be also very bad, and it can be very disruptive. And you have my notes. I had a more clear mind there, and you can relate to those questions and answer them for yourselves. But as I was thinking about these things, I ran across this book called Digital Invasion: How Technology is Shaping You and Your Relationship, by Dr. Archibald Hart and Sylvie Hart-Frege, who is the daughter of Dr. Archibald. And I'm glad that Lars is here from the steering committee, because I recommended him. I put him on a note where I recommend he or his daughter could be invited as speakers. It's a fabulous book, absolutely wonderful. I didn't know what to take from there. It was so good. And it just puts out questions and also brings out a lot of research into what technology is doing to us. He talks about the neuroplasticity of the brain and how studies have proven that our brains are changing. The technology that we are using these days, are changing and rewiring our brains. Now, I know about you, I don't like anyone to mess up with my brain. I will never let myself be hypnotized, ever, just because I want to be in control of my brain. But I have to agree that in pervasive ways, we are being rewired. And it's not this theory of conspiracy that somebody is conspiring to rewire my brain. It's happening. We are reading in a different way than we did before. We are processing the information in a different way. And I see this in myself, how much more this happens with our children. I'm the immigrant who has to learn this language. But our children are growing in this. And I think one of the biggest failures with education is that they don't know how to keep up with these changes. They either jump on the side where let's use all the technology and have the classrooms that are all electronic and everybody is with a tablet, or they go on the other side where they say no technology, you're not allowed to touch anything, we only use the natural things. Neither of these situations is correct in the current context. But things are happening, and in terms of what an extension does to us, think about the printing press. In the media literature, they say that the invention of the printing press completely revolutionized the world, and the first effect was the Industrial Revolution and the Reformation 200 years later. And there was resistance to printing, right? Especially the established church would say, having the printing press means to give knowledge to all those stupid people who don't know what to do with it. We know better what to do with it. So let's keep the control of information. Obviously, they couldn't do that anymore, and there were results 100 years down the street. The exchanges and the changes in technology these days are happening now. And we see the results in our lives, in our children's life. There are 10 years between my children, so 10 and 12 years between the older one and the younger one. And my older son was a very good partner of discussion about technology, and he loves technology, and we had some of the most wonderful discussions I ever had with anyone about technology were with my son. And he had a capacity of talking about it and helping me to understand how he's processing it. And then he started looking at his brother and he said, wow, he's 26 now. He said, wow, where would I be these days if I had the access that this kid is having at 12 or 14? So even in such young people, you see the differences. Then I don't know how many of you are teaching at high school or university level. Is anyone else than the two of you? Okay. I don't know if you observe differences between generations of students. I've been teaching for 20 years, And obviously, sometimes you have smarter students, sometimes not so interested. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the differences between one generation of student and the next year and the next year were much smaller than they are now. And I can tell that they are determined and they come with different knowledge. And you have to relate to them differently. Now, education should understand these things, and especially educators should understand. And the role of the educator has changed completely in the last years. Unfortunately, the majority of educators choose to teach the same way. And then most of the time you have the good students who would just reject you and be silent and well behaved, but not engage, and then do their own things. And that's the saddest part of all. Another thing then, the neuroplasticity of the brain is the addictions, and Dr. Hart is dedicating a full chapter to that. And he talks about how the use of technologies activates centers in the brain that create pleasure, just as pleasure is created in gaming, in gambling, in drugs, in sex, and other things that can become addictive. And I don't know about you, but I love that feeling when I sit down after a hard day, I flip open my computer, and I either watch a movie, a series, or I go on Facebook and I just browse there and see what's happening. I like it. And I realize, it brings a certain type of pleasure. Now, the problem with this kind of pleasure is that once you've had it, you want more. And then you go up and do something and come back and do the same thing. And you watch another series. And Netflix even adapted to this. And they say, why do you have to wait for a whole week or a month for the next series? We're going to give you all the 15 of them. And you can binge watch them. Okay? And sometimes we slip into that. And I do not believe there is anyone that didn't slip into one type of addiction or another. Now, there are moments when you can become so addicted that you cannot fix it. And I think this is one of the things that I'm trying to do, to, from time to time, to look inside me and say, what are the little addictions that I have right now? And how do I have to trim them? And one of the things that I observed is that if I consume information, and I consume a lot of news, so I have to read the news more times in a day, even if nothing happened, I still read them more times in a day, I cannot produce something. And if I have to write something, or if I have to do a conference or something, I have to disconnect myself. If I want to produce something, usually I say, okay, for 2 days, no more laptop, no more Facebook, no more news. And sometimes it's hard to reach this. And after I disconnect for a while, I can produce something. So this is one of the things that happened. We were turned into media consumers rather than people who can produce thought, who can produce and bring new things. And I'm not even touching on the sick addictions. I'm not even going there, because there are many workshops that deal here with sex addiction, with gambling, with other things that can destroy our marriages, our life. And like John Lennox said, it's one click away. And it happens in the church. It happens with the Christians, because we can hide it better than any time before. I just draw attention to your little addictions, to this slipping, to the things that stop you from being the best you can be because of certain technologies. So where is the limit between using it for good or for bad? And just a few thoughts you have on your notes. How should we then live in the information age? Turn off everything? Switch off our computers? Don't give our kids a phone? Don't let them on the internet? Personally, I don't believe this is a solution. Because if we switch them like this, they are going to find it somewhere else. And, we can live like the Amish. without electricity or whatever, but it's basically, it would be the same thing if we would cut technology. However, if we are on top of things, if we understand what everything can extend and what can it amputate in our life, if we can teach our children to be responsible and we can check them, then we can be advised user and we can use the technology for us and in our advantage.